I'm LaBarca. I've been with the police department approximately 23 years, and I'm currently the assistant commander at the West Springfield District Station. I was on B midnights at the Mason District Station. I just finished my second year with the department. I had gotten home probably around 7:30 that morning and went to sleep. It was a Tuesday morning, worked Monday night into Tuesday. The phone started ringing, and I remember waking up to the phone ringing and being irritated because someone had woke me up, because I was on midnights. And then turned the TV on, and oh my God, what happened? And not a minute later, the second plane flew into the second tower. My heart stopped because my uncle worked in Tower 1. His entire company was there, and I did not know what floor he was on. I didn't know if he was at work. So I was frantically calling my grandmother, and I finally got in touch with her. She told me that he wasn't there, that he had been promoted and moved uptown 6 months earlier. So my next thought was my Uncle Tommy, who is a firefighter in New York, and I couldn't get in touch with anybody that could give me any information on him. He transferred to Staten Island from Manhattan a few months earlier for his retirement, station. He's still a firefighter though, so he hasn't retired. And his company from Manhattan that he was with for 20 years, they were all killed. It definitely hit home. I finally found out about my other uncle. I couldn't talk to him the day of because, cell towers, you can imagine, were clogged up. He was stuck on Manhattan Island for hours. He didn't get home until much, much later. So I didn't actually talk to him until I saw him at my grandmother's house. So I contacted the station to see if they needed any extra people to come in. They didn't, so as you can imagine, I didn't get any sleep that day before I went back to work. I basically sat up all day crying, watching the TV. At one point I remember watching some cable news channel that I had never watched before. They were talking over the phone to a reporter who was in the Pentagon that morning, and something about, I think a bomb just hit the Pentagon, and that's all you heard at first, and it turned out to be the plane. So knowing that we were being attacked was kind of scary, and being a police officer, I just wanted to go and help and do something. But work didn't need anybody because we weren't going to the Pentagon. I know we had some assets that went to the Pentagon, but they didn't need patrol people to go to the Pentagon, or at least not the midnight shift at that point. That night, went to work. It was pretty somber roll call. We were given the task of guarding the station because we didn't know if there was going to be attacks on the station, guarding Fairfax Hospital, and guarding the command bus, which was up at the Pentagon, which is fairly close to the Mason District Station. I went to the Pentagon, and I just remember just the sight of it, still smoking, it was still on fire. The firefighters had hung the flag earlier in the day, and people were still just working like crazy. Our helicopter was there, and it was just so surreal, and it was just what a helpless feeling you have. My other uncle, his entire company, all of his people were killed, and it was just horrible. It was a horrible day, and I know that everyone else feels the same way. You never forget where you are. Just being at the Pentagon that night, just the sights and the smells, and it's like everything slows down when you see it, because it's amazing to see something like that. And I just remember, the feeling doesn't go away. I think maybe it gets better, and you kind of push that memory aside, but it still comes back. Every September 11th, it comes back, especially now that it's been 20 years, which is kind of crazy that time has gone that fast. A few weeks after, maybe about a week and a half after, I think it was my first weekend off, I drove home because I needed to see my family. And I just remember hitting the Jersey Turnpike, and the signboards said New York City closed. And it was crazy. Like, I grew up in New York and Jersey, and just seeing New York City closed, like, I never thought I'd see that in my life. And like, that image is in my head. Like, it's just the craziest thing. And I hope I never see that again, because it was just a terrible day. It touched my family more than it touched me. But the fact that they were suffering, it's tough when you come from a close family. The first time I spoke to my uncle was when I went home to Jersey, and we all met at my grandmother's house. His entire company was wiped out. He was dealing with emotional stuff, but my uncle's very stone-faced, and I just remember when I saw him, I just gave him a big hug. We've never talked about it. He's never talked about it, and I won't press him about it either. I just remember hugging him and crying. My grandma we're Italian. When I was a kid, every Sunday we'd all get together, like all of the cousins and aunts and uncles, and we'd have a big Italian dinner at my grandma and grandpa's house. So I went home and we had a big dinner, and I got to see my entire family, which was so comforting, because just talking to them on the phone was not enough for me. I needed to put eyeballs on them and hands on them and just hug everybody, and just to know that they were okay. I know that sounds crazy, but like, the phone just wasn't enough to talk to them. I had to see them. The night that I was at work on 9/11, that night, I just remember, aside from doing the security for the command post, when I was driving around my patrol area, there were people outside holding candles and like cheering for the cops as they drove by. And it seems like that just brought the whole country together, and people were remembering that we were one nation, we were one people, we were America, and we're fighters, and we're going to protect each other. And I wish people now could see that, could feel that,